welcome to our Friday weekly podcast slash live stream, whatever it is. We do this every Friday. We recap some of our videos from the last week, in particular, the one from this week from our good friend Rhye, where we built his pedal board. He built his dream rig. If you remember from maybe, I guess this was probably 2 or 3 months ago, we had been running a giveaway, which was called the Dream Pedalboard Giveaway, where in essence what we did is we said that we would, with our co-sponsors who are Goodwood Audio, True Tone, and Best-Tronics, that we would take somebody's existing rig and really kind of pimp their rig, so to speak. So we would use the high-quality products from Best-Tronics. They provided all the cables and plugs and accessories that were needed in order to build the rig, the materials. We provided the pedal board surface and all of the labor to put it together. Our friends at True Tone provided the power supply, and our friends over at Goodwood provided the buffer interface. We took all the existing pedals that were part of that person's rig, the winner, and assembled it into a high-quality pro-level rig. I even included one of our effects, which is kind of a bonus thing. It wasn't part of the giveaway, but I told the winner that we'd throw in whatever one pedal they wanted onto the board. And so last week's video was all about documenting that process. The person that we built the rig for, Rhye, was based over in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we brought all the stuff, paid for it to all get shipped here, put the rig together, documented, shipped it back. And he made a little video for us as well that we included in our final kind of reveal of the pedal board. And as you can see, it absolutely turned out amazing. We'll get into some of the close-up kind of glamour photos. But just for those of you that are new to our giveaway or haven't been here before or not familiar with how our live streams work, it's a live stream. Some of this even gets taken sometimes and put out through the Rig Doctor podcast. But the other thing that we do is we give away some great prizes for people that were watching our video and that were able to answer some of the questions. And even sometimes if you haven't watched the video that thoroughly, we kind of go over some of the different components, which may give you some idea of some of these answers to these questions. So what we do is we put out 5 questions throughout the course of the live stream. And about every 8 minutes, we do a new question. And we're going to be giving away 5 items today. So I'm going to go through those and show you exactly what they are. So one of the items that we're going to be giving away today is a free instrument cable from our friends over at Best-Tronics. They're going to be donating a instrument cable with Neutrik ends, free of charge, drop ship directly to you. So that's one of the items we'll have today. Also, our friends over at D'Addario are going to be donating some NYXL 10s. These are 3 packs of D'Addario NYXLs, again, shipped directly to your door. We're also going to be having a milliamp reader from our friends over at True Tone. This is a great tool. If you're building a pedal board, you need to know how much current your pedals are drawing so you know how much you've drawn against maybe the total of your power supply. This is a really handy tool to have. It also will act as a cable tester as well, so it kind of doubles up as that. We also have some Pro Plus capos from D'Addario. Excellent capo. Works very well. We use these on all of our instruments, whether it's here at my home studio or at the showroom in Burbank. And we also have to give away today a 1-spot power supply, again, from our friends over at True Tone. And again, all these things will be shipped directly to your door, no questions asked. So please do feel free to interject your answer when it's time to take those questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start our timer. I'll move it up here into the corner. And every 8 minutes, when this goes off, we will have a giveaway. And I'm also going to double this up on my phone because sometimes I just talk right through the giveaway because I forget that the timer is on. So let me set that, and I'll set it for 8 minutes. So I make sure that we do our giveaways every 8 minutes, that we stay on track. I just want to make sure that I have our questions all here so that we're ready for the live stream questions every 8 minutes. Okay, I got them here. Mejia just threw them to me in Dropbox. I'm just going to get them so that I can make sure that we stay on track with all of our questions. All right. Cool. So let's go back into Rhye's pedalboard rig. So I want to show you a few shots of it. If you didn't watch the video, you should. It turned out really great. So here's kind of the big rig pick. You can kind of see the whole thing. So we got a tuner in the corner there. We got a Keeley compressor, blues driver, a Gaiatone OD2 tube screamer, one of our Vertex boosts. That was one of the pedals that we provided. A Qtron, an Aquapus, a DD3, and a Hall of Fame in stereo out of the Goodwood audio interface. Here's a shot of it open, so you can kind of see under the hood. We got the True Tone CS12 there, and we got the Goodwood audio interfacer box there. It's got the isolated outputs as well, so when he runs stereo, he can have all of that transformer isolation and have his polarity switch and all that. And we did, you can kind of see here in the corner, we did a cool little mod to the Polytune where we paralleled the DC input because of how it sits on the pedal board. We just didn't have enough space to be able to power it off of its ordinary jack. Let me go to this photo here. Let's see. Yeah, we didn't have enough space here to power it off the back. You can see that it's like right at the edge of in the corner there with the Polytune. So I put a new DC jack on the side so that it could still stay in place, perfectly positioned, but we really didn't have much more room than what could be what we had afforded by this pedal board. So it was pretty tight fit for everything, but it fit absolutely perfectly. So no wasted space on this thing, but turned out really, really great. And I was so glad that we were able to get again a young player like Rhye. I mean, I think he's maybe 20. He's a young player, so I don't know that I would have ever had a rig this nice when I was 20. So I'm certainly glad that it went to somebody like Rhye that is going to enjoy this thing for years to come and is really going to get a chance to enjoy this rig and all the things that it's going to provide him. Reliable, sounds great. You can use it for church, you can use it for gigs, whatever. And so I'm excited to see how he's going to use it in the future. But let's see, what do we got on our outline here today? We talked a little bit about the rig and Rhye and the giveaway, and we are going to be doing another giveaway that are along these lines of the Dream Pedalboard giveaway. We try to do a couple a year. We had done a John Mayer style rig giveaway maybe like 6 months before this with our friends over at Sweetwater. And that was really a lot of fun. And I think that we're going to do another one. And I'm trying to determine whether this is going to be an artistic, like an artist-themed version of a pedal board, like how we did John Mayer. Like maybe we would do another kind of iconic artist. Or whether we would want to do another giveaway that's involves, rebuilding somebody's rig from scratch and building them, the best rig that they could have given their stuff and involving some other great sponsors and maybe some of the same ones like Goodwood and True Tone and stuff like that. So I'm curious if you guys have any opinions on whether we should do a thematic version like, an Eric Johnson pedal board where we build, kind of like a replica of Eric Johnson's rig, using available stuff, or maybe even some of the original pieces that he had, depending on, whether I have some of this stuff here or not, or whether we have to go track some of it down. But it's still fun even when we do those sorts of rigs because it gives people some insight on how they might even go about recreating that whole rig if they wanted to do it, or do pieces of that rig if there's kind of specialized parts of the rig that. My dog's having a dream right next to me here. So if you hear any barking, that's what's going on. So if you have any ideas as to what we should be doing, if you think we should go for more of an artist style rig, and whether again that's Eric Johnson or a Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix or whoever, we could certainly go that direction. Or if you think it should be more rebuilding some lucky winner's rig, I'm down to do it either way. I think it's fun to just get other people involved and get people excited about it. So I'm curious what you guys think, if you think it's better to go the artist direction or better to rebuild somebody's rig from scratch and kind of do like a Oprah style giveaway. Somebody, I think, put that in one of our comments the other day, that this pedalboard giveaway was better than anything that Oprah did. And I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly, for me, it's more fun. So, yeah, let's see. Yeah, let's go through the signal path a little bit, and we have about 2 minutes, and then we'll do our giveaway. And I don't think we're not going to eat up too much time talking about the rig. I think it's, these rig builds are pretty self-explanatory. So I'll try to prioritize as much as I can on getting to questions that are coming through. And, we already have some celebrity YouTubers in here already. Our buddy Sean Pierce Johnson, who I think has an amazing YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, you should. And we also have one of the best Univibe and pedal builders out there, our friend Nico over in Argentina. Shout out to Nico. Thanks for joining us today. Let's talk about the signal path a little bit, just in case anybody's wondering. We'll take a closed view first. So basically, we have to start under the hood. So under the hood, it comes into the Goodwood audio interface, so that's first. And this doesn't have a tuner out. So what I did is I put a split mono cable where one side went to the tuner, like a Y cable, and the other side went to the compressor. And that's essentially what any tuner out is doing, is it's basically Ying it off from the output side of the input buffer. So if you're Ying off of a high quality, low impedance output buffer, you're not going to have any problem at having a parallel load like that. It's not going to be any issue. It's the same exact thing as what you would be doing internally for a tuner out. So that's what I did. So it's a Y cable off the input. So you have one side going to the compressor, the other side just going to the input of the tuner, and the tuner is just always staying on. And then if you want to mute, then you'll kick down the fractal volume pedal, which is connected to the Vertex boost. But let's continue the signal path. So from compressor, we have the Blues Driver BD2. This is just a stock one, not a Keeley modded or anything. Then it goes to a Gaiatone OD2. These were kind of budget-oriented pedals that came out. I think these are from the 90s. And then the reissued TS808, then a Vertex Boost. Then it comes upstairs to the Qtron, Aquapus, DD3, then Hall of Fame in stereo. And then it goes back under into the Goodwood audio interfacer, left and right outputs. It's got that transformer isolated right output. And that's the whole entire rig. So pretty simple. Sounds great. And that's our 8 minutes for our giveaway. So this is a perfect time now that we've gone through the signal path. We can talk about our first giveaway question. So let me put this up on the screen. So it'll come up on the screen. First person to answer this question correctly is going to win our very first giveaway item today, which is going to be, let's see, what's our first giveaway item? Our first giveaway item today. Jeez, that's really noisy. Is going to be some NYXL 3-packs. So you're going to get a 3-pack of NYXLs, my favorite strings. I use everywhere from the 9s to the 11s, depending on the guitar. These are absolutely great. Love these strings. Let's do question number 1. So question number 1, we want to know, what are the 3 pillars of the Holy Trinity of Tone? 3 pillars of the Holy Trinity of Tone. This is something that I talk about all the time. But we want to know about the 3 pillars of the Holy Trinity of Tone. What are they? Put it in the comments below. First person to answer this correctly will win a 3-pack of NYXL 10s. For whatever reason, I can't shrink the size of our questions, so they're just going to block my face temporarily. What are the 3 pillars of the Holy Trinity of Tone? This is a terminology that we use in almost every single one of our videos. We talk about the Holy Trinity of Tone, and these are the 3 things that need to be in place in order to ensure that your pedal board sounds as good as it possibly could. And it looks like we got Vince DeGoya as our winner of the very first giveaway. That's going to be, again, our NYXL 3-pack of 10. So congratulations to Vince. So the Holy Trinity of Tone, just to give you a quick overview in case you weren't sure or you didn't get it correct, are, again, the 3 things that need to happen in order to ensure that not only is your rig as quiet as possible, it sounds as close to the guitar plugged into the amplifier, even if you're running through a pedal board, and is going to be as reliable as possible. So one of the pillars is using an isolated, preferably switch mode power supply. That's ensuring every pedal is getting quiet, high quality power, And if you're using switch mode, then you don't have to worry about where the power supply is in relationship to the pedals, because there can be some magnetic leakage from the transformer in there. The second part of it is using high-quality buffers on your input and output. By doing that, you're ensuring that the guitar is loaded appropriately, so your pickups are seeing that 1 meg input impedance and then converting to low impedance on the output of that input buffer, and then having a high-quality buffer at the end on the output to drive the line all the way back to the amp, so you don't have to worry about whatever pedals are turned on the pedal board. You never have to rely on a pedal to drive that line, because there's no standards on input and output impedances on pedals, and we don't want to have to rely on an inferior pedal to have to drive that output cable, which generally is the longest individual cable of anything on a pedal board. And then the third component of the Holy Trinity of Tone is soldered cables. So you want to have soldered cables as much as possible on the pedal board. Now, if you have solderless cables right now, it's not the cable that's the problem. It's the connection that is the problem, where the cable meets the connector or the plug. That's where the problem happens. And I've seen people argue with me about this that don't know what they're talking about. But the main thing is, and the only argument that I think that they have that has any merit, is there is an ease of use when you're using a solderless connection where you can modify it or change it very easily. But a lot of times people are applying inappropriate values to the solderless connections, saying, well, in a NASA spaceship, there's solderless connections, or in automotive, automotive parts there or an automotive. Let's just change that. I can't find the words. In cars, there are components that are solderless. And there's two things I would say to that. One, they're in non-critical areas where they're not receiving any sort of vibration or any sort of movement. The second thing is that they're using crimping tools on there that are calibrated so that they apply the same amount of pressure every time. And a lot of times these are cold welded with these crimps. So it's actually better than a soldered connection in that case. But in guitar pedal land and in guitar pedal board land, we don't have those sort of calibrated tools. Nobody's going to buy a $1,200 crimping mechanism and make sure it's calibrated with every rig that they build so that it's applying the same amount of pressure every time. It just doesn't exist in our industry. And so with the technology that's available now with solderless connections, it in no way resembles the quality of a soldered connection. And so when we're talking about our industry, there's a huge discrepancy between the quality of the connection. You have a lot of risks with solderless in terms of cold flow. You have a lot of risks in terms of not having a gas-tight connection, oxidation and corrosion. There's all these things that are possible that are just mitigated so much more by using a soldered connection. So if you like solderless cables and you like the brand that you have, fine, use it, but solder it to a high-quality soldered connection. We have plenty of tutorials to show you how to do that. That was really long-winded, so I'm sorry because I say that a lot. But we'll start a new giveaway. If you didn't win this one, in another 8 minutes, we'll have another one, and we'll be giving away a new item. So that was the Holy Trinity of Tone. Sorry for the long-winded answer. I know that sometimes when solderless cables come up, I get talkative. So sorry for those who have had to endure that many times. But let's, I think that as far as Rhye's pedalboard is concerned, we talked about the signal path. We talked about our great sponsors with True Tone, Goodwood, and best-tronics. Again, True Tone provided the power supply. Goodwood provided the high-quality dual. It's actually a tri-buffer because there's an input buffer and 2 output buffers with the transformer isolation on one of them. And best-tronics provide all those cables, plugs, power cables. I think they even provided the tie-down mounts and zip ties and all that stuff. So most of the materials came from them as far as the pedal board building. And then, of course, we used one of our 20 by 11 pedal board surfaces with a cutout for a volume pedal, which you can find from all of our retailers like Sweetwater and also on the Rig DR website and on Vertex website if you're interested in that particular pedal board. But let's get into some questions. We'll go about almost 7 minutes, and then we'll go to another giveaway, and then we'll continue. So thanks, everybody, for being here. If you got questions, throw them in the comments, and I'll get through as many as I can. And I think we should pretty much be able to catch up on all these because we're starting early enough. So let's see. We got people coming in from Orlando, Portugal, wow, Finland. And then I already talked about our buddy Nico over in Argentina, coming a long way, Pennsylvania. Amazing. All right. So Mejia is kind of helping me go through some of these questions. So if you see it coming up as Vertex, it's just because Mejia is helping me kind of curate a little bit. So shout out to Mejia, who's regulating in the chat. This is from Eeyore Apache guitar. Sorry if I said that wrong. I run, maybe that's delay, my diet. I think it's delay. Drive pedals into my amp input. I don't know what diet is, but let's just pretend it's something that's in front of the amp. And delay, reverb, chorus in my effects loop. Is there a buffer box I can use for all this instead of 4 separate buffers? So there isn't anything that is on the market that I know of that does all of that. Because ideally, you would want an input buffer that guitar plugs into first, goes through all the effects in front of your amp, then output buffer goes into the input of the amp. Hopefully you have a buffered effects loop, so the send would already be buffered. You go through your series of reverb, chorus, delay, and then you would want another buffer on the return, driving it back to the amp, because basically it's like you need another output buffer there. So there isn't anything that I'm aware of that's on the market that does all that. However, our DIY buffer kit that we did a tutorial video on using the Creation Audio Lab PCB buffers that are built into the jacks, there's a diagram for exactly what you're asking for. And so if you're willing to either take that to a tech if you feel uncomfortable doing it yourself or attempting it yourself, you could have exactly what you want, and it would provide all the buffering. But as far as kind of over-the-counter or pre-made versions of this, I'm not aware of any that do that exactly without having to get separate units. This is from Jason Slick. Is Pigtronics power supply good for powering up my pedals? I don't actually know that I didn't even know that Pigtronics made a power supply, so I don't know. I'll have to talk to old man Coltai over there at Pigtronics. Although I think they sold it, so I don't know how he's involved these days. But I don't know. I'm not aware of the power supply, so I can't say. I'm sorry, Jason. Let's see, Jeremy. Do you have a power tube brand preference? EL84. I think that when I bought EL84s for the Vox back there, you see behind me, my friend Michael Pope, formerly of Bethel Music, is just an EL84 connoisseur, and he really felt strongly that the Eurotubes JJs were the best to get for EL84s, and there was a couple of different varieties there depending on whether you wanted kind of more gain or not. And I think I went with the lower gain versions, and I think that they sound really good in that particular amp. But the thing about tubes is that it's kind of a crapshoot in the way that it was explained to me by somebody that I know that deals a lot with the manufacturers of tubes, I guess formerly in Russia in Russia and China. Although I think right now it's mostly just happening in Russia, if I'm not mistaken, or this is at least the word on the street, is that, a lot of these are all made in the same factory, whether it's, Ruby or Electro Harmonics or JJ. A lot of these are made in the same factories, and Tungsol and TAD and all that. And so sometimes you'll have one manufacturer complain that they're having a lot of fallout, and so the focus of the manufacturing will go to that particular tube, and then the other brands will start to kind of have more fallout, and then those brands will complain, and then their quality control will become tighter, and then the other brand will become less tight. And so the way that it's been explained to me by those that I trust that are making a lot of amplifiers is that it can be really variable, because the technique of the manufacturers of the tubes is like you pay the exterminator to chase the rats out of your house, and they send them to your neighbors, and then your neighbor calls the same exterminator, and then they come, and then the rats come back to your place. And so it depends on the run. A lot of times, because a lot of these places, there's so few places that are making tubes now that you can it's often in the same facility that you'll have multiple different brands that are made of the same exact type of tube. Now, my technique for getting tubes, not specifically to EL84s, mostly 6L6s and 12AX7s, is I used to just buy 70s Fenders and PAs that utilized a lot of 12AX7s or 6L6s, and I would just harvest them from there and retube them with new stuff and then just sell them. And I was buying them at a low enough price where I knew that I could resell them for at least what I paid, and I would have tubes out of it. And most of the time that worked really well. I also did that with church organs too. You could get a lot of tubes from them. Not all of them are complementary to Fender or typical tube amps, but a lot of times they are. And that was another way to get them, because a lot of times you'll see free listings on Craigslist for church organs, and a lot of times you'll be able to harvest a lot of usable tubes that will work in a lot of your ordinary tube amps. And I was always straight up with the church or whatever that was selling it about what I was intending to do. And a lot of times they didn't care. They were just trying to get rid of it, and the units were already not functional, and so they didn't really have any qualms about harvesting tubes from it. So there was some cool stuff that you can do, either harvesting from like 70s or kind of undesirable eras of Fender amplifiers, or just tube amps in general that have complementary tubes to what you're looking for. And you can get some great NOS, old stock tubes. And a lot of times they're still got a lot of life in them. They're still super functional. It's not like tubes now where, you might get a couple years out of them and then that's it. So that's my technique. So you can always try that on Craigslist. Old Fender PAs are also great for harvesting reverb tanks. If you need a vintage style Fender reverb tank to replace, there's nothing comparable to those now. Even the Accutronics ones are not the same. So it's a good way to get an old pan out of a Fender to put into your super reverb or whatever it is that you're trying to replace the tank with. So let's go to another giveaway question, though. We ran out of time for this round. We'll go back to questions, but we got another giveaway. So let's put this up on the screen. I'm going to obstruct my face for a moment. First person to answer this correctly is going to win. What do we got here? Is going to win a milliamp reader from our friends over at True Tone. First person answers correctly in the chat will win that item shipped directly to them. The question is, what is the standard for effects loop impedance in our industry? What are the standards for effects loop impedances? What's the standard for send impedance? What's the standard for return? Or maybe there isn't. What are the standards for effects loop impedances? We've talked about this a little bit, and it's like many things in our industry. Who's won our milliamp reader? Mahi is going to let me know once we got a winner, and then we'll resume. It looks like Giacomine Productions got this one, and it should be that there is no standard. We have no standard established in our industry for impedances on effects loops or levels. There's a lot of them are passive, and some of them are active, but there's no standard. There's no standard on input and output impedances on pedals. There's no standard for levels on effects loop. I mean, sometimes you'll see compensations for -20 and +4. Sometimes it'll be -10. They're all over the place. There's just no standard. This is what makes it so hard for guys that are manufacturing pedals, especially stuff that would begin an effects loop, is they never really know what they're getting. They don't know the level of the signal that's going to come in. They don't know what's going to, what they need, how much cable they need to drive to go back to the return. There's all sorts of weird idiosyncrasies here. So anybody that's making amplifiers with effects loops, it's I don't envy it, but they should have at least solid state buffers in them is what I hope. But in any case, we're going to restart the clock. If you didn't win this round, we're going to do another giveaway in 8 minutes. I'm going to restart my phone clock as well so that I remember to get to our giveaway. So congratulations to our winner, and we'll have another giveaway in 8 minutes. Let's keep taking some more questions. Let's see. Oh, I got another celebrity, Marvin Music. Shout out to Danny Rabin. If you don't know Marvin, go check him out. Danny is one of my favorite guitar players in the whole world. He's got Tone of the Gods, and also he's got probably one of the closest tones when he wants to go there. Not that this is what he does in his own music, but he wants to go SRV. He's one of the closest guys I've ever heard to getting those tones, which is way harder than you think. It's so hard to sound like Steve Ray Vaughan. All right, APEC. Where can I send you a photo of my board so you can suggest what to do with it? Well, typically, if you're looking for consulting, we offer those services over on therigdr.com. And so you can send an inquiry there and you can sign up for a consult. If you're looking for, advice on a signal path, you can always write that out in the comments. And I try to answer most of those, although I think that for whatever reason, anytime you try to send a link, that it somehow blocks the link. So I don't even see that part. I just see like the comment and then there's no link. And I don't know if that's a setting that I need to change, but if you write it out and put it in the questions, I can answer it there. Or if you really want to have like one-on-one FaceTime, then you can sign up for a consult with me or one of the rig nurses to help you out with that. You have the new boost pedal. Awesome. Well, I think if you have the boost pedal, I would say put it after your drives, or you could put it in your effects loop, depending on whether you have one. Sean Fierce Johnson, I think your rig needs a house call. When I saw the rig you put together, I thought it looked pretty good, man. What's wrong with it, Sean? This is from Total Evo 7. Is there any difference in putting an XLR or two XLR jacks into a DIY interface if you're using something like a Noble or Pinstripe, or is it the same effect as a 1/4-inch jack? So you could use a TRS or an XLR interchangeably. Sometimes on interfaces on pedal boards, people will use TRS and then go out to XLR on the connection outside of the pedal board because it takes up so much less space. Typically for like pedal board stuff, they'll use, the D style Neutrik jacks or switchcraft jacks, and those take up a lot of space. And so you don't have as much room as you would to fit 1/4-inch connections. So there are some people that will opt to use TRS 1/4-inch as opposed to XLR for the throughs in an interface. So I don't know if that's what you're asking for, but you could use them interchangeably. If you have enough space, you could certainly do the D-style jack, but you kind of need something a little bit higher than just a standard Hammond like 1590B, because if you want to use a D-shaped jack, you have to turn it so that it's horizontal instead of vertical because it won't clear the enclosure. So just a heads up on that if you're planning to do something along these lines. I have a dry bell unit 76, which has a buffer. Okay. Curious if I should go before or after my phase 90 and flanger. If I use it after, it'll go through 4 true bypass pedals before the buffer. So, I think that it depends on, on the quality of the buffer, what the loading is, and if you're curious about what the recommended specs are on a buffer, you can watch any of our buffer videos. It's typically 1 meg input impedance, 100 ohm output impedance. I don't know what the dry bell unit 67 has in terms of its input impedance. And I also don't know if you're going to like how it sounds if you're driving a boosted signal into a phase 90 or a flanger. Sometimes those can clip or distort in a way that's displeasing to you. If you are okay with how that sounds and you don't find that it's providing any sort of distortion to the phase 90 or flanger that you don't like, then I'd say if it has a 1 meg input impedance, sure, put it first. And have that make sure it's loading the guitar with a 1 meg input impedance. It's going to give you what you want. I'd be surprised if the output impedance was as low as 100 ohms, but who knows? Maybe it is. But it's nice to have 100 ohm output impedance. I don't know on the input section that it's absolutely critical. I mean, it's nice to have, but presumably you're going to be turning on a pedal pretty soon after it, so any effect from the low output impedance is going to be overtaken by whatever pedal is on to follow. So I would double check that the input impedance is at least 1 meg. You're probably going to want that. Let's see. This is from Kyle. If you have a buffered switcher and a pedal with a buffer that can be turned on off in a loop, should the pedal be turned on or kept on? Let me reread this because I'm having a hard time. Okay, so if you have a buffered switcher and a pedal with a buffer that can be turned on and off in a loop, should the pedal buffer? Well, so if it's, let's say it's a Boss pedal, right? The pedal that has a buffer. If it's in a switcher loop, then just leave it. Just leave it on. It's not when it's in bypass, it's not affecting anything. And when it's on, any pedal that's on is buffering. Any pedal, whether it's true bypass or not. So, hopefully your switcher has high quality buffers in it. Some of them do, a lot of them don't. And I would rely on those input and output buffers. Or if it's a pedal that's sensitive to buffers, then in a lot of these you can bypass the input buffer depending on the preset. So you would just leave the pedal on because every loop is true bypass, but the switcher is providing just usually an input and output buffer to isolate everything as much as possible impedance-wise. So I hope that answers your question. Vince, how do you DIY a power cable for an HX Stomp using the Zuma or Ojai? Tried to make the current doubler cable and it doesn't seem to work all the time. Well, if it works some of the time, then it would mean that you have some sort of short or intermittent. But really, for the HX Stomp, all you're doing is making a current doubler, which is basically just a 1-to-1. So this would be, taking an existing, let's say, provided cable from Strymon, and wiring, tip to tip and sleeve to sleeve, so you just have the red wire in the black wire, I guess, if you're stripping a Strymon. And the red wire would match, it would double up on one of the other jacks at the tip, and then the black wire would go to the sleeve to the ground. And then you'd have one longer cable coming out of it. And I can't remember on the HX, it's definitely 2.5 millimeter. I can't remember whether the polarity is inverted or not. And if it were, then you could just flip it on the side that connects to the HX. If it's working sometimes and not other times, that would probably mean that you have a problem with the way that you soldered the you soldered the cable. Because if it's intermittent, and it's working sometimes, then I would say that has to do more with the way that you did it. But we have a tutorial and a diagram on how to wire a current doubler. And the only adaptation that you would make to that is if it is reverse polarity, and I don't remember whether they are. It might be. You would want to make sure that on the side that connects to the pedal that you just invert the red and black wires on that connection, and that it's 2.5 millimeter. So double check whether it's reverse polarity or not. It may just be that it's 2.5 millimeter and you have a 2.1. I don't know. But that would be how you would do it. So it's time for another giveaway. We've elapsed another 8 minutes. And so this time we're going to be giving away a capo from our friends over at Diodario. Again, shipped right to your house. No questions asked for the winner. First person to answer this correctly will win this item. I'm going to put the question up. First person to answer correctly in the chat wins. Question is, what is the most important stage in the rig building process? Is it A, power, B, audio, C, planning, or D, the sound check? What is the most important stage in the rig building process? And it looks like Mark got it. And the answer to this would be C, planning. This is along the old saying that you measure twice and you cut once. If you plan out a rig really explicitly, you spend your time really making sure that everything is placed properly, that you've accounted for all your cables, you've accounted for all your wire looms, you know where stuff's going, you've labeled everything, so you know which cables are connecting to what. That is the most important thing. Again, the old saying, measure twice, cut once. This is really an important thing if you don't want to get stuck. I think that the planning process supersedes any other thing that you could do, really making sure that you're being methodical, planning stuff out, making sure everything's going where you want it to go. If you didn't win it, no problemo, because we got another giveaway in 8 minutes. Set the timer already. We'll keep taking some more questions. We'll do another giveaway in 8 minutes. All right, let's see. Oh, and a couple people when I asked about what type of rig giveaway should we do next, we had Mejia asked for a Weird Al rig giveaway for his accordion rig. I actually was in touch with Weird Al about this, so I'm hoping that we'll make it happen one day with him. But currently, no plans to do an accordion rig. But we also have some votes for an Eric Johnson rig for a next giveaway for sure. But we'll see what happens. Let's see. Another one is I'm planning on expanding the number of power outlets I have connecting to a gig rig isolator to an output on my CS12. Would this work by connecting a gig rig isolator to an output on my CS12? I don't know what the isolator requires in terms of its input voltage in order to make it work. So I think that's the real question. I think you need to figure out what the input needs to be into because I think the gig rig isolator is just sort of like an expansion pack that has to have some sort of input voltage coming into it that then allows the rest of the outputs to kind of be isolated, but with whatever that current is that's coming in. So I think that's what you need to figure out is if it needs to be something greater than 9 volts and if the current needs to be at a certain minimum. So I would investigate that. Probably a better question for Gig Rig since they know their products better than I do. So I would direct you there to ask them that one. So I don't know. I thought the interfacer had a tuner out. No, I don't think it was a custom model. It just had an input, and then it had a passive through, and then it had 2 output buffers. So the one that I got did not have a tuner out, or at least not that I'm aware of. But again, even if we had used it, it'd be the same difference as putting a Y cable. So if you ever have an input buffer that you want to go to a tuner out or make it a tuner out, you can just make a simple Y cable. Just all mono, and that'll work equally well. If it's got a low output impedance like 100 ohms, you're not going to have any problem driving that. It's the same exact thing as what you would just be doing inside the box to wire a tuner out. There wouldn't be anything different about it. Let's see. Got some people answering some of those first questions. Let's see. Here we go. All right, here's another one. This is from Thomas. Hey, Mason, I watched a video of you at Best-Tronics recently. That was a couple years ago when we were in Chicago. At one point in the video, they used epoxy instead of zip ties to secure the DC barrel connectors. Will any epoxy work? I don't recommend that you use epoxy, but I was sort of defaulting to, since they were kind of sponsoring the video and building the rig, we were, defaulting to some of their practices and what they would do. I don't know that there's anything, it's not going to hurt anything to do it. The reason why I wouldn't do it that way is that if you ever have a failure, your plug, you have to replace the entire plug. You can't, attempt to reuse it or resolder it because once the epoxy is in there, it's impossible to be able to change it, reuse it, repair it. It's stuck in that position. And usually I only re-terminate on the power supply end, so it gets so little movement or there's very little access to it to ever become disturbed that epoxying it is just overkill for what it is, and zip tying it will preserve it. I've really never had an issue with it. Now some people terminate the ends on the pedals, and those certainly get more action. That's why I don't usually use the re-terminated ends on the pedals because those are typically getting more wear and tear, getting plugged in and out more. The molded ends are a little more robust for that, and then I always keep the the newly terminated ends on the power supply, since that's a little more protected. So it's not necessary. So if you were going to use it, they have some sort of clear epoxy, and it looks more, honestly, less like an epoxy and more like a silicone. But you have to be careful on the type of silicone that you get, because some of them can create problems with electrical stuff or with different types of metals. The epoxy that I've used in the past for stuff that's related is just like a JB Weld, like quick set epoxy, but it's a real pain in the butt to use, and I don't recommend that you do it. I think you should just use zip ties, and I think you'll be fine. So that's what my vote is. This is from Ricardo. Have you ever considered the idea of showing or even teaching how to mod pedals? I think this would be a great addition to your already great content. Yeah, so we've got something planned called Modding with the Masters. And what we've done is we're going to collaborate with some of the greats. Brian Wampler, Robert Keeley, Josh Scott from JHS, and other, sort of legacy builders. And we're going to have them teach a mod to do to a common everyday pedal that many of us either, one, already have, or two, could get very inexpensively. So we're talking about kind of classic Boss, Ibanez, Tube Screamers, stuff like that. And performing a mod that is an easy, approachable mod for people that are getting, into pedals or new to doing pedals or any sort of DIY work. Some of it is as simple as maybe removing a few components and maybe moving a wire or two. And then there's a few that are a little more invasive, where it might be installing a swappable IC socket or something like that. But they're all kind of very approachable, beginner-style tutorials. And we're going to be bringing in, again, some of these guys are going to kind of talk about some of their legacy mods that you will have known a lot of these guys for, and maybe how to implement part of that to do a mod to a common pedal. So that's going to be a new series that we're going to be introducing, I'm hoping, in the next month or two, with some of those great guys, again, modding with the masters. And they're going to teach the mod. I'm going to show you, a little more deliberately how to do it. They're going to talk about the mod, what it does. And then I think we'll also give away one pedal that's already pre-modded, so people can enjoy that as well. And all that information will be out there. If people want to mod like the masters, they can do it. They can implement a Robert Keeley approved mod shown by Robert Keeley and given over by Robert Keeley, so that you can perform it on your own blues driver or whatever it is that Robert decides that he wants to reveal as part of the mod. And then I'll give you an in-depth tutorial of really hands-on how to do it, in addition to having that schematic and that diagram. So it should be pretty cool. I think it'll be fun. I think it's a good place to start, especially for people that are just getting into this. Braxel, what do you think about the Boss Tonebender craze? I didn't know that it was a craze, but I think it was a really cool thing that they collaborated to make that pedal. I think that's great. I think it brings a iconic vintage effect to the masses. And in Boss, I think it's cool that they're doing that, and they're recreating these products and making them accessible to everybody. So I'm pleased that that Boss is doing it. So shout out to Boss. And we got about 20 seconds here. I think actually we'll stop 20 seconds early and get right into our next giveaway question, just so we have plenty of time. So I'll run out the clock deliberately, and we'll go to our next giveaway question. So this giveaway question, again, is going to come up on the screen. It's going to obstruct my face. And the first person to answer it correctly is going to win a one-spot wall wart. This is a great thing just to have around. It's maybe not the most quiet, best power supply in the world, but you always need a wall wart around if you're just trying out a pedal, or you want to audition something, or you just want to see, what this new pedal might sound like, and you don't want to have to disrupt your pedal board. You just want to have one laying around. Just a good thing just to have. So person who answers this question correctly is going to get that shipped directly to their house, right from our friends at True Tone. So let's go ahead and put the question up. First person to answer correctly wins. Question is, what Vertex pedal is on Rhye's new pedal board? This will have to necessitate you to have either seen the pictures that I showed earlier, or that you actually had watched the video. What's the Vertex pedal that's on Rhye's new board? The winner of our dream Pedalboard Giveaway, what was the Vertex pedal that was on his rig, the winner of the Dream Pedalboard Giveaway. There was one Vertex pedal that we gifted him as a result of being the winner, and it looks like Eugene McClear was the winner, and it was none other than the Vertex Boost. We'll give you a good rig pick here, and you can see it. Vertex Boost right there in the bottom left-hand corner, and a Vertex Boost on there, and it was connected to the Fractal volume pedal. So shout out to our buddy Eugene. Thanks for winning. Thanks for playing. And if you didn't win, we got another giveaway in 8 minutes. So you don't have to worry about that. And the final giveaway today will be for a best-tronics instrument cable. A very, very high quality, lovely instrument cable. It's got a braided shield, very low capacitance. So I think somebody's going to dig that for sure. So that'll be our last giveaway for today. That'll be happening in 8 minutes. Let's take some more questions. Okay, this is from Nick. If you were out of outputs in your isolated power supply, which effects would be okay to share a single output or split to a daisy chain? So I have a great video on this, which is about, I think it's called like maximizing your power supply or something like that. But really anything that is one analog, two low current, like overdrives, distortions, wahs, what else would be a good one? Boosts, things like that. Those are all great. You don't want to do anything digital. Some people forget that their tuners are digital. A lot of tuners will have some weird oscillation if you parallel them. Anything with a clock, so like a chorus or a flanger. Sometimes you can hear like a ticking in some of them if you combine. Not always, but sometimes. But the best litmus test is just to make a Y cable and just start testing and seeing how it affects the noise. And if the pedal's true bypass, it's pretty easy to just, unplug one, and then bring it back in and see if you hear any, audible noise like ticking and stuff like that that's bleeding through or having any sort of weird coupling issues. So I think testing is always the best way to make that determination. But I'd say, blind, just giving you advice, I would say anything analog, anything in the overdrive, distortion, boost, wah category would usually be a good candidate for that. We got to make sure the voltage is the same. So if it's an 9-volt pedal, you want to make sure that all the pedals that are daisy chained are 9 volts, and you want to make sure you don't exceed the current of the total output. So if it's 100 milliamp output, the combined current of all the pedals in the daisy chain shouldn't exceed that. That's why something handy like this milliamp reader is so nice, because you can do the math very easily and see exactly what the pedals are drawing. Because sometimes there's a little discrepancy between what the spec sheet might say and what the actual current is being drawn. Usually it's less in reality than what the spec sheet says, but sometimes that can also depend on how you're running it. Let's keep going. This is from Braxel. I have an RJM 6X that O'Million made me a couple years ago. I'm assuming he made you a pedal board with an RJM 6X. He didn't make you the 6X. I think that's right. But I really need the special one you had RJM build, or do I need this one sent in to get an update? So the way that it worked with RJM is we just did a limited run of, I can't remember what the total number was. It was like 15 or something like that. I think we started with 10, and the first 10 sold out in a couple hours, and then we added another 5 more. So I think there's only 15, and that was all that we did. So we don't have any more of them, and we're not offering modifications to them. We had modded a few in the past, and that was kind of how we got started with them on this whole thing. But we don't offer the mod. You can ask RJM if they'll offer it, and it's not that involved. I did ask Ron if we could show how to do the mod, but at this point I don't have any permission to do that. So I don't want to put out that mod without Ron's blessing, because I don't want him to get a slew of customer service issues because somebody instituted the mod incorrectly and then damaged their PVC, and now he's having to deal with the fallout of somebody else's error. So I didn't want to create that problem for him, and so until I have his okay to do so, I won't show how to do that mod. if he does give me permission, I will show how to do it publicly, and then you can decide whether you want to take that on yourself or you can send it to somebody to do for you. But I don't offer that mod, and I don't even offer pedalboard builds. I just do it for YouTube content when I feel like it. So I'm not your guy, but maybe we'll do another run of them again. I'm not sure. But as of now, I don't know of anybody that does it. You might want to have to check with Ron and Sherry on that one, Braxel. So I'm sorry if you missed the sale. They were gone pretty fast. I think the first 10 were sold in like 3 hours, and then the second 5, or the next group of 5 that we added on, I think those sold maybe 6 hours. So we just don't have any left. I'm sorry. Dustin King. Does the True Tone power supply auto switch voltage from 9 to 12 volts for 12 volt pedals? No, you have to change it internally so that that it does that. So there's like a dip switch underneath that you have to move. You have to move from 9 to 12 volts on that. But it will auto switch the input voltage on everything except for the AC side. But most people don't seem to ever use the AC outlet unless they have like a whammy or something. So if you took it overseas, you would never have to change it unless you were using the AC side. Otherwise, all the other parts of it are switch mode. So, but to answer your question, you have to physically change it underneath with the dip switches from 9 to 12 volts. Let's see. This is from Dean. What effects should go in the effects loop versus the front input? Well, I got a great video on that. I know I said this a lot about signal path. I think we just did it the other week. It was called Advanced Signal Paths, Understanding Wet, Dry, Wet Signal Paths, and for Cable Method, which is the effects loop. And so it shows a little more deliberately there where each effect goes, or where I recommend it would go for kind of a classical setup. But typically, you would only put the processing effects like the delays and reverbs. You could make a case to put chorus in the effects loop, although I kind of like it as more of an in front of the amp effect. I've seen other people put other types of modulation effects in the effects loop, but generally it's a delay and reverb type thing. And if the amp is clean, then there's not much value to the effects loop. But if you are getting distortion from the amplifier, like if it's a channel switching amplifier or something like that, then the value of the effects loop is more apparent, because it would be the same as putting your delay and reverb before an overdrive pedal, in essence, if the amplifier is producing distortion. Whereas if you're using the effects loop, it's putting all those effects, the delay and reverb, after the preamp but before the power amp section. So that video might help clarify this for you, make a little more sense. So I recommend you check that out if you haven't already. Let's see. This one is why are fuzz pedals noisy? Not sure how to make a fuzz pedal. Not sure how a fuzz pedal sounds when not put in the proper place in the signal. Please explain. Well, if you put it after a buffer, it just won't sound the way that you're used to hearing it in terms of its dynamics and how it works with the volume pod in terms of cleaning it up and stuff like that. It can really change that, and it can also make the fuzz kind of sound a little spittier, maybe a lot brighter than it might ordinarily be if it's just seeing the guitar. But in terms of noise, if you're talking about like a fuzz face or something like that, I mean, they're really high impedance, so they're sensitive to everything. And really a way to think about, something that is high impedance versus low impedance. High impedance is going to be very environmentally sensitive to everything. Low impedance is not going to be very sensitive to the environment. And, depends on, noise floor can be affected by a lot of things. Sometimes it can be the gain of the transistors, and sometimes it can be how it's built, or, there can be a lot of different things that contribute to this. But I think that if you get a fuzz, you're going to have to be okay with noise, because they're all kind of noisy and finicky, and that's part of the beauty of what makes fuzzes cool and great in analog. And I've yet to meet a fuzz face that I thought was really dead quiet. I mean, there's some things you can do to try to mitigate some of it to a degree, but it's going to be noisier than your ordinary overdrive or distortion pedal. It's just kind of par for the course if you're going that route, unless it's like a really gated fuzz, like a Fuzz Factory or something like that from Zvex. But we're coming up on time for our final giveaway, so I'm going to run out the clock, and then I'm going to put our last giveaway question for the day on screen. And again, this one is going to be for a best-tronics instrument cable, high quality braided shield, low capacitance, definitely a good cable. Let's see who's going to win this one. The question is, which overdrive on Rhye's board sounded surprisingly good to me? You would only know this if you watched the video. This is for somebody that watched the video, and I mentioned on there that there was kind of a sleeper pedal that I thought sounded really good that was a surprise. Even though it was a very budget-oriented pedal, it was a surprise how good it sounded. And Ricardo Marcos got that one, and it was none other than the Gaiatone, the OD2, that little orange pedal in the middle in the front row. A total sleeper. Those were, really cheap, budget-friendly pedals, but actually was a real surprise. Sounded really, really awesome, really, really great. So congratulations to him. Now, we're coming right up on an hour, and today I do have some things I have to take care of in the afternoon. And so we're going to transition to our private stream. If you don't know what our private stream is, we offer a private stream to our Patreon members and also to people that are supporting members over on therigdr.com. If you want to know what that is, you can head over to our Patreon page, which is just patreon.com/rigdoctor, and it'll show you different tiers and options. And if you go over to therigdr.com, we also have consulting services and different paid memberships there. Now, if you look at all these and you're like, you know what, I don't want to spend an extra $5 a month. This is not in my budget. No problem, because we offer a free version of the account. It gives you the same rights and privileges of our basic tier, which is a $4.99 tier. We don't want money to stand between you and getting great tones. So just send us an email, info@vertexeffects.com, or you can email Rhye. He'll throw his email in the comments, and you can request a free account. Nobody knows who has a free account and who has a paid account. We all look the same. And you can join us as part of the private chat that goes to follow this, and we do that for about another 30 minutes after, and you can have a little bit more one-on-one conversation, a smaller group of people that are part of our supporting members. So please feel free to do that if money is an obstacle and you're not sure whether it's worth it to you, or you want to kind of check it out first, and then you can always become a supporting member at a later time. There's no obligation to do that. If you request a free account, we grant 100% of those, no questions asked. So please do that. The other thing I wanted to tell people is I know I have a lot of questions here that I didn't get to today, but what I'm requesting is that you take this time now, you go find that question that you wanted to ask, you copy it, and then when I end the stream, you'll be able to post that into the comments below. And so I will get to that over the course of this weekend. I think anybody who's on here will tell you that I try to answer almost every single one of these questions. Personally, I answer them myself, and nobody else answers. Most of the time I answer. If it's a technical thing, I almost always answer it. So please be sure to do that. I will answer your question over the course of the weekend as I have some spare time, either on my phone or here on my computer to answer it for you, and I'll do my very best. So please do that. If you haven't already, find your comment, highlight it, and copy it. When I end the stream, you can paste it. And if you want to join us for the private stream, you can hit up Rhye, and he'll get you the stream link, and you can join and be a supporting member if you'd like, or you can, again, request a free account. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next weekend for our Patreon and supporting people on the RigDR. Rhye will send you out the stream link for the private stream, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks, guys.